Annyeong, it's Mikey here. Guys, thank you so much for all the support, and I can't believe that now I'm over 5,000 subscribers. It's crazy to see how far this channel has come, and really all I have is for you guys, to thank you guys. Now, today I have two different switches. I want to thank Chilkey, or Wuque Studio specifically, and TTC. Now, TTC sent me out their newest. It's going to be a like camo style of their King of Magnet. So we're going to have to take a look at this one. And we also have the Flux switch from Wuque Studio, which is going to be really interesting to see as well, because both of them are going to be very, very little stummable, it looks like. So we're going to have to take a look. Let's look at the information of each switch, hear the sound test, and of course compare them with, say, some of the other Hall effect switches that I like. So let's go straight into that, and please make sure to like and subscribe. So we did the sound test with both the TTC and the Wuque Studio Flux. Now, one thing I felt from both of these switches is that both of them actually were pretty decent in terms of the smoothness and in terms of the sound, the crispness. The Flux was definitely a lot more crisp. And I also felt that the TTC had quite a bit of scratchiness even when lubed. Now, as you can see here, there's a little bit of a difference between the two switches in terms of how they're made. The TTCs, I gotta admit, like TTC's done really cool things and done a really good job in upgrading for very little stemmable switches. But the Wuque Studio, the first time they're ever doing a magnetic switch, I gotta admit they did a great job. Though I'm gonna be honest, the pricing on these things are ridiculously expensive. I personally think that the Flux is actually quite expensive for what you're getting, because all these other switches out there are going to be like $1 or less per switch. The Flux is actually a lot more. Now the TTCs though, on the other hand, you're looking at like probably around 50 to 60 cents per switch if you get the 90. So if you compare the two right there, the TTCs, I would say, is more worth in terms of the price. But for the sound profile though, I feel like both of them is still not something I'm looking for. The Flux is definitely a lot more crisp sounding, but the TTCs, I would have to admit, like they're super smooth. After you lube them, you have to make sure you lube them well. To be fair, I did get a sample of them, so the actual regular ones might be way better lubed factory wise. It's just the ones I received had no lube at all. But let me give you guys a kind of closer look in terms of the stem wobble. So sorry right there was a bit of camera shaking, but let's take a look to see at the actual stem wobble. Now, both of them are going to be a bit better in terms of stem wobble because of the way the switches look. Now, one thing I've looked and noticed with the Wuque Studio Flux is that it actually is really, really good for the stem wobble because of the way that the stem is shaped. It's like a hexagonal shape, and because of that and the way that the top housing is, you're really getting almost no shake at all, no stem wobble at all. So quite impressive in terms of that. And I would say that the way that they've made the switch itself is actually really, really smooth, and it felt really good even stock. Now the TTC, the camouflage, you get a little bit of rattling at the top end. So at the top end you will get some rattling right there. It's very minimal though. It's not something that you really notice heavily unless you are someone that's very sensitive to that. And then of course, once you get to the bottom though, you're getting like no stem wobble at all. As you can see there, it's actually really, really, really stiff. So TTC's done a great job in terms of that. Now, one thing I do want to do is show you guys a bit of the backlighting test. And I'm only going to be doing these focusing on the two switches here, because you guys can check out the other videos I've got for the other switches to see that comparison. Now, the Flux is a lot more brighter than the TTC. Now, both of them have a diffuser for the lighting. Both is really great and color accurate and quite bright. The thing is though that the Flux is actually a lot brighter. I think the way that the diffuser has been done and the color of the switch as well is actually affecting that. You can see here that it is super, super bright compared to the TTC, and even in person you will notice that. Please also keep in mind that I am doing this on a camera, so when you are looking at it in a camera, the lighting is going to come off, of course, different than when you see it in person. Now, the TTC is very, very focused, right? The light is all focused right into that diffuser, while the Wuque Studio switch light does bleed into the middle of the top housing. So even though there's a light diffuser, the lighting does bleed through, which is why it's looking a lot brighter as well. And once you put a keycaps on it as well, you can really notice it. The Flux definitely much, much brighter, while the TTC's is decently bright. It's just not as bright as the Flux. And of course, the color accuracy wise, both is really good. One thing I really appreciated is that both of them aren't having like any changes of colors, like for example, the Gateron Jade Pros. Now, I just want to give you guys a little bit more of a closer look at them by opening them up and kind of giving you guys the kind of like the more in-depth look at each switch. Now, the TTC is very easy to open with the switch opener. You need a switch opener to open it though. So I did get samples. Mine do not have any lube on them. And because of that, of course, it's going to sound a lot scratchier and feel a lot scratchier. Now, these are samples that TTC sent me. So when you are getting the actual switches, chances are it's going to get factory lubed and it's going to be a lot better.
especially when they're saying that it is going to be factory loop. Now, as you can see there, the bottom is open, but there is a couple holes in there. So like very small holes, which might be also the reason why these switches in general have a little bit more of a higher ting pitch to them. One thing you'll notice, the magnet on the bottom is protruding slightly out of the bottom stem. So keep that in mind. That's also what causes the sound. Because the metal part is slightly protruding, you will get that. Now, to measure the spring length as well, I want to kind of, it's not going to be fully accurate though. Please keep this in mind that like when I'm doing this measurements, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but we're looking at about 17 millimeters, and it's because of how like the springs work. You know, you're going to have to try to figure out the best portion to actually keep it in there and get an accurate measurement, but we're looking at most likely about 17 millimeters in terms of the spring distance. And again, these switches only have the full distance of travel for 3.4 millimeters, so keep that in mind. And of course, let's go check out the Flux. Now, the Flux does not need a switch over to open it. The way that they made it, you actually can use your switch puller and just put it into the sides there, and you can pull off the tabs to be able to get it out. Now, once you can see here, I'm going to get it out here, and I'm going to give you guys a look closer at what the stem looks like and the factory lubing. So as you can see here, it is coming factory lubed. The lube is actually pretty decently done on these switches, and that's why I feel like the hand lubing versus the just factory lubing, like the stock sound test, is really small differences in terms of the sound. Wuque Studio has done a great job in terms of having the factory lube, and quite impressed with what they've done with the switch. One thing I noticed is that also on the bottom of the stem, let me give you a bit closer look. As you can see, the magnetic portion is actually protruding less than the TTC would, so it is a little bit more flat, and I think due to that, the sound is a little bit more crisp without the ting, like the magnetic ting. And in terms of the spring length as well, I'm trying to get this really good measurement. Sorry guys, it's hard. But I'm seeing here that it's going to be around the same spring length. So about 17 millimeters it looks like. So we're looking at a very similar spring length for these as well. And of course the distance on these switches is going to be about 3.5 millimeters. Now overall, I would still say honestly, my favorites is still going to be the Owlabs Ti Switch, and it's going to be the Geon Raw as well. Right now, those two switches I feel like have just done a really great job to being crisp sounding and smooth. The TTC is still scratchy for me when it's lubed, and the Flux is a little bit too high pitched, I found. But I will have the links in the description for both switches, so go take a look.
So now we did the sound tests, we did all the comparisons with all the other switches. Honestly, I gotta admit, the TTC one is pretty decent in terms of the sound wise, like when I'm using the PC case, like the plastic case, and then when I used the Wuque Studio one as well, it was actually quite smooth. I was quite surprised in terms of their first Hall effect switch of how well they did. The only thing is though, it's still a high pitched switch, so I would say it's a lot clackier, like a lot higher pitch clack for the Wuque Studio, but it is a crisp sound, which I did enjoy. Now the TTC, honestly, I'm gonna say like for both switches that they're both pretty good. If you're looking for a higher pitch switch, something that's a little bit more smooth, you're gonna have to lube the TTCs a lot more than you would say the Wuque Studio. So keep that in mind for yourselves. For the TTC, if you don't lube them, they're okay, but I would say they require a little bit more lube than normal. Like you'd have to do a little bit more of a heavier lube, almost like over lubing it, to make it really sound much better. Now, I gotta say though, currently my favorites are still the T Switch, like the Ti Switch from Owlabs, as well as the Geon Raw. So like those two are still gonna be my favorites right now at this stage. But I have to admit, for those out there, you should go check these out. I'll have the links in the description for both. But you know, they're pretty good, honestly. Like more companies are doing better, and honestly, TTC I'd say is doing something a little bit more different than say other companies out there. But Wuque Studio, good job on this one as well. Hopefully we'll see a company that really brings out a deep switch soon. So check out the other videos I got, and I'll see you guys all next time.